Hello everyone! I was gonna give the Creation Club a rest for a couple weeks and cover other topics, but then I've received an overwhelming number of people asking me to talk about the new survival mode that's in beta for the Skyrim Special Edition. Normally, I just post whatever I want, but considering I've repeated myself a lot talking about the Creation Club, and some of the people who really want to know some of these details actually give me money, I guess distilling my answers into video form would be a good idea. But some people are more out of the loop than others, other people who only caught details of it. For everybody's sake, let's recap the whole thing and then talk about current events. Note that I'm going to be even more of a jackass than usual, so get out of here if you don't like it. It really starts with Valve, the owners of Steam. They already had a successful paid mod system for Team Fortress 2, Dota 2, and a few other games. The way those systems worked is someone creates assets for these video games, then puts them up for review. The users look at the assets, and there's a little question that says, do you want to see these in the game? You can go yes or not interested. Valve would review the submissions in order of votes, so popular entries would get reviewed first. If it was inappropriate, not in theme, or there were any other problems with the submission, it was rejected and did not become a paid part of the game. If it was accepted, however, the modification would become available for purchase in the game, and the authors would receive a cut of the profit. This system was built and designed for free-to-play games that supported microtransactions. We all know in a free-to-play game, you forego the entry fee of having to buy into the game, and in exchange, you know it's supported by microtransactions later on. So we don't think of free-to-play games as scummy necessarily, whereas a game that is full price that you buy into later, that's just pure unadulterated greed. Well, either way, back in the day, there were companies like id Software, back before they were acquired by Bethesda, who used to license out their games to various mod makers who actually formed official studios. These mod makers went pro and were treated like professional software developers. They created expansion packs for Doom and Quake, expansion packs that can still be bought on Steam today. But that's how paid mods used to work, at least as far as id Software was concerned. And it worked incredibly well. The expansion packs sold, and the studios, whilst they broke up after they made their intended expansion pack, they did receive their share of money. That's how paid modding used to work back in the day. You had to go pro if you wanted to actually get a company's attention. Bethesda, it turns out, isn't as receptive unless a studio has proven themselves, like Obsidian, and even then, Obsidian hinted at, we'd love to be approached about another Fallout game, and they pretty much don't need anybody else at this point in order to make money. So somewhere during the development of Fallout 4, there were discussions regarding mod makers and YouTubers. This was before Bethesda clarified the hell out of their video policy. If you look at their video policy back in the day, it was very bare bones. It basically just said you can make videos. Now it is well defined. Before, Bethesda just didn't take down people's videos in general and ignored things like Let's Plays. But the legal status of a Let's Play was ambiguous with a Bethesda game. See, Bethesda looked the other way when people monetized Skyrim videos. But when someone attempted to kickstart the development of a mod, they received the smackdown. The Nexus has a good relationship with Matt Grandstaff, who they generally just refer to as G-Staff, which is how the Nexus knew exactly what to look for and kick off the Nexus mods for behavior that, wasn't endorsed, like crowdfunding a mod, for example. So because of this working relationship G-Staff had with the Nexus has been on pretty good terms with Bethesda in general. But inside of the Nexus, the mod makers themselves, they built up a certain level of resentment, considering we had mod reviewers who were making money off the mods and mod makers who couldn't make money off the mods. This inherent disconnect would lead to my next video, the Nexus problem. I'll have that linked below. That's regarding the lawsuit between Tarshana and MxR over her mod, The Floating Market. But the discussion was going internally at this time, around the time when Fallout 4 just started being worked on. Contrary to popular opinion, the idea of a paid mod system didn't start in a boardroom with a bunch of guys being, greedy executives. How can we make money off this? No, that would come later. The original discussion for paid mods was altruistic. It started off as, how can we be fair to the mod makers who look at YouTubers profiting off of Skyrim? How can we give mod makers the chance at making a living off mod making, keeping in mind that these people at their level did not make the rules. They were in Bethesda, but they were not the head honchos, the people who made the decisions. As you know, you can't get a corporation to do anything entirely based off altruism. So they had to pitch it internally, how Bethesda Softworks would profit off of this. So if you're asking how does altruism turn to greed, that's how. You take an altruistic idea and you give it to a bunch of executives. But because their pitch was Bethesda could profit off of this, that's what started the discussions between Bethesda Softworks and Valve, which ultimately led to the paid mod system. Valve had been curating their paid user content for a while now, and showcased their curation tools to Bethesda, which promptly got a no response from Bethesda. This was a deal breaker. Bethesda did not want to curate the content. They wanted an open marketplace where Bethesda could be hands-off but still make money. At the same time these discussions were going on internally, Bethesda would announce Fallout 4 with mods available on the PlayStation and Xbox. Yes, console mods. Now, internally, I took a note of this, skeptically, because it just didn't seem right to me. Consoles had been very picky about what kind of content they let on, and user content on a console, the console manufacturers weren't too happy about that usually. So I was thinking, what caused Microsoft to change their mind? I'd find out later. I would come to realize that they wanted to sell mods on the Xbox and PlayStation, and you can get Microsoft's approval if it's going to make money. So there we go. Valve collectively shrugged at the idea of, you don't want to curate it, I don't understand why, but fine, if that's a deal breaker, we'll remove the curation tools. So that's what Valve did. Mod makers, including Chesko, the creator of Frostfall, Wearable Lanterns, and more, as well as several other mod makers, they were all contacted to provide an initial offering for the paid mod system, but they were given insufficient time to make any decent mods. So with a substandard offering of cobbled together mods, coupled with various mod makers taking their stuff off of the Nexus and re-uploading it as pay-for mods, it sent the communities into a frenzy. I say communities because there's no such thing as a modding community. No one thinks one way about anything. There's a community around Chesko. There's a community around any Scion. There's a community around each of these major modders. And if a modder doesn't, then they didn't promote themselves well enough. But every mod maker who has made a decent amount of mods has a fan somewhere. And again, each of these communities think differently. And that's an important distinction because this wasn't just a crusade against the paid mod system. It was a cluster. It was a chaotic mess. Anyway, there's a concept called loss aversion that we'll get into later, which plays into how the Creation Club works. But an example people would point to is SkyUI. It's a mod that was required for pretty much all the other mods to work because of a mod configuration menu system. The creator announced a paid mod version that would get new and updated content in it. The collective user base lost their crap. Even though this was one of the more reasonable examples, they went crazy with it because they were afraid that SkyUI was going to be taken down, that all their mods were going to become worthless because they couldn't use their dependency. Even though, if you actually spent time and read what the author had to say, they were going to maintain a free version along with the paid version, which would continue to support the requirements of all the other mods, whilst also adapting new features specific to the paid version. Now, the least reasonable individual came in the form of Midas Magic, who modified his free version on the Nexus and seemed to have pop-ups happen during combat when using his mods that would say, upgrade to the full version for brand new spells. And you'd be like, I'm fighting here. Nobody respected Midas Magic's sense, and it's been a joke in the modding community. There's even a meme version of his mod now. Either way, everyone cited the horribly low cut that mod makers were receiving. Much of this criticism was pointed at Valve, even though anyone who's dealt with Valve professionally can tell you that Valve only took its 30% standard cut for hosting, credit card processing, support, and all the other Steamworks services. If you have a game on Steam, they're taking 30%. That's what they do. It's the same cut they charge everybody. They left it to Bethesda Softworks how to divide the remainder. Therefore, when you ask where the suits came in and screwed everything up, this would be it. The insistence of taking such a large cut and leaving mod makers with 25%, that's Bethesda Softworks, all them. They could have kept it fairly even, but they wanted more money, so they opted to take more money. Because it was out of the hands of the altruistic people who made that original pitch. Now, it's Bethesda Softworks going all in on this enterprise. Money, money, money. Even with mod makers taking their free mods down, even with the community pissed off, even with the substandard amount, all of that going on, Bethesda Softworks, the publisher, was satisfied with this outcome and wrote up a piece defending the system. After it came to light, people were stealing mods, and various EU customer protection laws may or may not have been violated. Valve pretty much had their lawyers do a second pass at the whole system and said no. And so this came to a head. Valve contacted Bethesda with the decision to take the system down because it was a massive, massive liability. Bethesda would post their reasons for taking the system down, none of which I personally suspect were very honest. This was cut and dry, make ourselves look good press release. From the people whom I've talked to regarding Valve, most of the problems regarding this paid mod system were Bethesda's fault. Either way, the paid mods experiment on the PC was an abject failure. I'm told at this point they diverted resources away from the Creation Kit for Fallout 4, putting the Creation Kit on a lower priority. That's why the Creation Kit was delayed for Fallout 4. Why spend extra man-hours above and beyond on something that wasn't going to create additional profit? It didn't make sense to do that. So you can see now how the push for console mods was actually the push for paid mods. I said this in recent videos, but mobile and console users, on average, and if you're not part of the average, congratulations on being better than average, by the way. But on average, console users spend money on microtransactions. And even if the average didn't, there's a dedicated selection of whales, as the industry calls them. You're either a minnow, a dolphin, or a whale. Either way, the whales who spend $100+ on games like FIFA a month, yeah, those exist. Most free-to-play games are actually funded by a very small portion of people, the whales. A whale is worth 50 dolphins, and we don't even care about minnows. So now we entered a gap of time where people swore up and down they'd never try paid mods again, that this concept was just too toxic to let it happen. These people's posts are still up in like a time capsule. You can go back in time and see how wrong they were. It's like they didn't understand how companies work, especially for-profit companies with a corporate ownership that is responsible for making money. Thank God I'm such a jerk so that I can see reality for what it really is instead of this idealized mishmash that other people try to put up with, where they think that, like, companies are their friends. What kind of crazy people think a company is their friend? Oh, wait, we'll get to him later. Anyway, the result of participation in the paid mod system is people like Chesko were attacked, which is ridiculous. I would never begrudge someone getting paid for their work. The only entity to blame here is Bethesda Softworks and, by extension, ZeniMax Media, their corporate owners. Other mod makers who didn't have any involvement in the paid mod system at all were attacked for rumors that they were, such as Shezrie on the Nexus. When I was just delving into this whole quagmire originally, I read posts about Shezrie and how terrible she was treated by the community, how she received threats and things like that. As someone who receives threats myself, I can feel for her. In fact, I felt sympathetic until I found out how she acts like a crazy person. She's perhaps one of the most trollable people on the internet, riling up into a frenzy over minor things. I posted a video called The Nexus Problem. She posted like a 4-page response on that, answering a question by insulting me. The point is, Shezrie came off originally as someone who, like Chesko, was being demonized for something she didn't do, and she quickly devolved in my eyes into a flaming bitch. Either way, speaking of people acting crazy, let's talk about Arthmoor. He is most famous as the creator of the unofficial Skyrim patch. This guy is a legend, a tremendous individual who's done much more than just that. I have incredible respect for the work this person has done. But let's separate the work from the person. I want to clarify, I respect this man's work, and I would love to see him get paid for that work. In fact, he's opened up a Patreon, and I recommend, if you like the Skyrim unofficial patch, he's definitely worth $1 a month for the services of that unofficial patch. But again, separating the work from the person, let's talk about the person. During the paid mods system, he made posts in support of paid mods, something I can't fault him for. Again, everyone should be paid for their work, but this man had a dream of being a paid professional modder. Following his Nexus and Reddit posts back, he developed a grudge against those who argued against paid modding, and began to project other people's motivations where they didn't have one. For example, when I was struggling to wrap my head around the Tarshana MxR lawsuit, and I did video and live stream and so on, like, I'm trying to understand this situation more than just the opinionated posts of one person or the opinionated posts of someone else. I'm trying to break this down. I know the law says this, but I didn't know there was a new EULA. I didn't know, exactly the process that went on during all of this. So as I was deconstructing all of this, apparently he constructed a version of me in his posts where I was seeking to erode mod makers' rights. Yes, he constructed a version of me where I had an agenda, and I was an enemy. As a result of being his enemy, the enemy of mod makers, he rejected my points out of hand. It was amazing to watch him reject things I knew as fact. For example, the only reason ZeniMax grants you ownership of your mods, created with the Creation Kit, was to cut liability. You see, in the aftermath of the legal nightmare that was the paid mod system, Valve was smart to get out of that thing, because it was a massive legal nightmare. Imagine if ZeniMax or Bethesda actually owned the mods that you made. Meaning they would be legally responsible when those mods screwed up your computer. It'd be a legal nightmare. The Creation Kit change, the change in the EULA, was done in response to that original paid mod system, tightening up the legal loopholes. So now you own the mods, your responsibility, you did something bad in your mod, the legal ramifications are on you. But, again, it was just amazing to watch as, he rejects this stuff out of hand when he doesn't consider the legal implications of each thing. Luckily, I'm cynical enough to tear through people's hopes and dreams and see reality for what it is. Bethesda is not your friend. Repeat it with me, Arthmoor. Bethesda is not your friend. No company is your friend. I can't contemplate where people think Nintendo is their friend. But facts like that disregarded as attempting to erode mod makers' rights. Yeah, my scary agenda. I work with mod makers all the time. You're crazy, man. You're crazy. I was wowed, to say the least. Unlike some just random internet individual, this guy is one of the mod authors that made a mod that I consider to be mandatory. So looking into it, as a part of my research for the Nexus Problem video, I found a post where he condemned the reactionary user base and Valve for pulling the plug on paid mods prematurely. He painted a picture where he knew they would bring them back eventually, and it would free mod makers and be like a renaissance of modding. I knew this was bullcrap the moment I read it, though. And let's keep that in the back of your mind. He thought this was going to be freeing and a renaissance of modding when they brought back the paid mod system. Okay? Now, we chug forward to the future. So, in between this time, we had the whole Nexus Problem video, which I finally did put out. I'll make sure it's linked in a comment below for you guys, because that was a wild, wild trip. The whole Tarshana MxR situation was just amazing. And it was all based off of something Bethesda was trying to fix. The disparity between YouTubers and mod makers. And then corporate got their hands on it and turned it into the paid mod monster, where mod makers got 25% and people were stealing mods left and right. A non-curated mess. How altruism goes so terribly wrong. Thanks, corporate America. We'd have Bethesda Game Studios on radio silence this entire time. Since the release of Fallout 4's final DLC, they were done. They're making their own game. They haven't been heard from since. Everything we've heard with the Bethesda name on it hasn't actually been Bethesda Game Studios, the people who've been making games. It's been Bethesda Softworks, the publisher, ZeniMax Online Studios, the MMO shop responsible for Elder Scrolls Online, Direwolf Studios, who made Elder Scrolls Legends, the card game, and ZeniMax Media, the corporate overlords. When the Skyrim Special Edition was announced, we found out it was not Bethesda Game Studios proper, but rather a support studio in Montreal. Again, Bethesda Game Studios is absent. They're working on their own thing. It was 2 E3s ago where I heard them promoting BE3 and having Adam Sessler and Morgan Webb misspeaking about the Elder Scrolls. It became apparent to me that ZeniMax Media / Bethesda Softworks, they were becoming EA. Fast forward to this E3, we had 2 presentations. People actually went to E3, got a set of themed parties, each room with drinks and sites representing each game. This party was called Bethesda Land. It was pretty amazing, but it was, again, very limited to E3. This was showy. It had no substance to it. So the people who went to Bethesda Land, a lot of them were wowed. But none of this translated to online viewers. What we got was the really bad corporate presentation that everyone saw kind of at the end. Then came the announcement of the Creation Club. Folks like Fudge Muppet, Camelworks, even Mr. Matty Plays were extremely disappointed with this E3, but none of it came to any surprise for me. Remember, folks, it isn't about games anymore. It's about the industry. You are not the gaming community. You are not the Bethesda community. You are customers. Either way, with the Creation Club announced, mod makers were going to finally get to apply and become actual developers, and their creations would be sold in-game. People like myself jumped into calling it Paid Mods 2.0 because in spirit, that's exactly what it was. Their lawyers hand-tooled and figured out, how do we get around the problems of the last paid mod system? And the answer was microtransactions. Curated microtransactions. Instead of selling expansion packs, like id Software used to do back in the day, no, we're going to nickel and dime people just to hell and back. Defenders of this system would say that because it was curated by Bethesda, that people were working for Bethesda, that this was official DLC and not paid mods. I hate to break it to you, but mod-like content being sold to you, you're paying for it. Mod-like, paid for. Paid mods. Even if they aren't paid mods, microtransactions are worse. Being placed retroactively in a full-price game, Two Worlds 2 got crucified for that, and I hope that Fallout 4 and Skyrim Special Edition get crucified for it as well. Everybody who owns Fallout 4 or Skyrim Special Edition on Steam, anyone who has a Metacritic account, I would like you to go visit both your Steam page and your Metacritic account. And I'd like you to think, just reflect deep down, the score you had for the game in the past versus a version of that game that has microtransactions pushed into the full-priced game. If it affects the score in your mind, I want you to adjust the score accordingly to the kind of impact that you feel that has for the game. If it brought the game up from a 7 to a 10 in your mind, make the adjustment. However, if you're like me, and it brought it from a 7 to a 5 or a 7 to a 4, update it accordingly. The game deserves a review commensurate with the current condition of the game. A full-priced game that contains microtransactions. Maybe it's not full price now, maybe it's on sale, but you paid full price for it, right? And now you have microtransactions that you can buy. We'll get into those microtransactions later, but please listen to my appeal. Update your scores accordingly. If you think it made the game better, rate the game better. But if you think it made the game worse, rate it worse. If you think it's the same, then just disregard what I'm saying. But my point of view, they already got your money, the money they were entitled to when you bought the game. And if you already bought the season pass, then you're already entitled to the DLC. But they're going to try to nickel and dime you more. I am not saying attack the mod makers. In fact, I'm very much against that idea. If you find out that Eleonora or Trainwiz were a part of the Creation Club for various products, please don't attack them. Maybe you think because they're freelancing with Bethesda now, they don't necessarily deserve your Patreon anymore. If you think that, make the appropriate change, but don't attack them, don't call them names, don't threaten them, because everyone deserves to be paid for their work. The people to get mad at is an entity, Bethesda Softworks, ZeniMax Media. Those are the people to target those emotions at. Don't get pissed off at an artist or a sound engineer or someone who writes storyline because you don't like the business practices of the company. Target the company. Now, I realize at this point where I've got off track and I've done my impassioned speech, let's go back and talk about exactly how the system works. So a mod maker applies to the Creation Club. Bethesda Softworks assesses your worth based on your portfolio, aka what mods you made before. If you made things like, say, a Skyrim unofficial patch, or a patch to, say, update the perk trees, well, you're not the person they're looking for, at least not when the Creation Club launched. Your changes are too radical, and not what Bethesda's looking for. Bethesda's looking for people who can make new armors, new weapons, and possibly things that complement the existing game. Not change it. They're not looking for someone to make a full expansion pack. They're looking for someone to make like a mini adventure or a mini armor DLC or a extra weapon DLC. They want to nickel and dime people. And if your work can't be nickeled and dimed, then there's no point. They won't hire you, at least based on their original set of accepted modders. Keep in mind, though, you're viewed as a mod maker going pro. You're expected to sign a contract, one that contains a non-disclosure agreement, which will prohibit you from talking about most of what you're working on, how much you're paid, and other details. You're given contract work on a mod or project, and the total amount you'll be paid is based on that original contract. The payments will be divided up into development milestones, alpha, beta, and full release, and each step will be tested along the way. I'm told that Creation Club members are paid extremely well. I'm told that the Creation Club developers are not being lowballed. I'm told they're getting paid an extremely competitive rate, but that they are very discriminatory as to which content they actually want and how you are to present that content, what format that content is to come in, so on and so forth. Now, unlike the previous paid mod system, unless it's negotiated separately, which is unlikely, there aren't royalties or profit sharing. You're treated pretty much like a freelancer that many, many video game companies employ. This is a standard practice in the industry. You are hired, your work belongs to Bethesda Softworks, your contract's done, your work with Bethesda Softworks is done. You are paid based on your milestones. But the work being created is in the scope and scale they expect from a system like this at the end of the day. So microtransactions. Again, they want to nickel and dime people for individual sets of armor, individual weapons, so on, so forth. They do not want large sweeping quest mods. They do not want expansion packs because that would take too many man hours to test. And at the end of the day, the content is overpriced. With Bethesda Bucks, which is the Creation Club credits, I call them Bethesda Bucks, being priced at specific amounts, forcing you to pay more than the asking price and causing you to have credits left over. It's a racket employed by many mobile game companies. Such schemes that you may have enjoyed in various mobile games, you get to now enjoy in Skyrim Special Edition and Fallout 4. They've brought this scumminess to you in a full-priced AAA product years after the original releases were done. Take a moment and think about that. Now, remember back when I said Arthmoor was saying this was going to be the thing that frees mod makers and this was going to be a renaissance of modding? Obviously, we know where that ended up, right? This is microtransactions. And Bethesda has revealed its true face. Gone are the days that Bethesda Softworks is just Bethesda Game Studios' publisher. They are now an entity unto themselves. And what they've done is they've eroded away community trust. Not that it matters, because PlayStation 4 is the primary demographic for the Skyrim Special Edition and Fallout 4. They are counting on the whales there buying the Creation Club content. If you, on the PC, are angry and you downvote the game, which I still recommend you reevaluate your rating of the game based on its current status for accuracy's sake, not for any kind of mental retaliation. Retaliation doesn't work, but accuracy is paramount. Either way, it doesn't matter how much you retaliate on the PC because you are not their target demographic. Their target demographic are the whales on the PlayStation. Why are there whales on the PlayStation? Part of it has to do with the fact that they don't let complex mods on PlayStation. Sony demands that a PlayStation developer's license is used. Bethesda has one. Bethesda will publish Creation Club work under the Bethesda developer's license. No problem. They obviously can't be responsible for random mod makers, and that's why PC and Xbox has more mods. But the PlayStation user base is larger, which is insane. I get, on all of my videos, on all of my character builds, anytime I talk about a mod, first question out the gate is, can this mod be used on PlayStation? Can this build be made in PlayStation with PlayStation mods? People are desperate for content on the PS4. And many of them are going to buy into this. And the whales, the people who spend $100+ on FIFA every month, they're going to fund this thing. They're going to fund the creation of new products. There are enough of them to where the Creation Club can keep chugging on. I don't have anything against the individual mod makers. People should get paid. It's why when I heard Trainwiz and Eleonora were in the Creation Club, thumbs up. But here's what a lot of people want me to talk about today, and that's Chesko and the Creation Club survival mod. Chesko is responsible for Campfire, Frostfall, Wearable Lanterns, and a few other mods. As someone who lives in an area that gets really cold in winter and I have to trudge through snow. I would say that Frostfall is inaccurate and definitely needs to be tweaked via the mod configuration menu for it to make sense. What the Creation Club is currently running in beta is Frostfall and I Need combined. It's a survival mod. So your character gets hungry, your character gets cold. Unlike I Need, your character doesn't seem to get thirsty. But either way, you have to eat and you have to stay warm. This is very much like Chesko's Frostfall, and some of the messages are identical. It's gotten to a point where people are saying, left and right, that Chesko's got to be responsible for this thing. No, Chesko couldn't have been responsible for this thing. One of the statements in the Creation Club is we will not allow existing work to be retrofitted into the Creation Club. Well, they've already violated that with their Hellfire Power Armor and stuff like that because it was in one of their previous games. At the end of the day, Bethesda picks and chooses when they follow their own rules because the rule wasn't made for them. It was made for people applying to the Creation Club. It was a set of guidelines for people looking to submit their content, but it was also a piece of PR. Remember before when I said I'm pretty sure this thing that Bethesda published was just fluff designed to make them look good? That's what this is. The idea that you can't retrofit an existing mod. Remember when I mentioned that statement earlier, loss aversion? The community is very adverse to the idea of having an existing free mod taken away from them. They don't want it. It's why it's a big deal when something like Worm's Tooth disappears. Now, Worm's Tooth, the author has given the green light for people to privately share the mod amongst themselves. So it's not like that mod's gone forever, but like the Civil War overhaul, the guy protesting Trump, he lost his mind, and, you know, he declared that everyone was Nazis, and he just decided that he was going to take his stuff down, which, but yeah, what it comes down to, I look at these people, I'm just like, I feel sorry for you. Your life must be hell because you care about things you can't change, and those things that you can't change, you're just lashing out wildly, doing nothing but what we refer to as slacktivism, where you take down a mod or post on Twitter an angry rant. You're accomplishing nothing. Congratulations. Either way, people like that who take down their stuff, the community hates it. Hates the idea of having things taken away. And so to prevent the idea that stuff was going to be taken away, that's their way of addressing loss aversion. It's their saying that, no, you can't just take down your mod from the Nexus and then put it up as a Creation Club thing. We're not going to let you do that. But even though they said that, bam, Frostfall I Need combination in Skyrim now. Because Bethesda chooses when to follow Bethesda's rules. The rules weren't there for Bethesda to have to follow one way or the other. So what do I think about the new survival mod? I think that unless we're able to access a mod configuration menu and properly edit the values like we can with I Need, like we can with Realistic Needs and Diseases, and like we can with Frostfall and Campfire, this is a vastly inferior product that I would not want in my game. That said, I've had a few technical issues with Frostfall in the special edition, such as crashes. If this mod won't crash, maybe I could get a configuration menu type deal to fix it. That's my thought anyway. Oh, and the price of this. It's going to be worth 800 Bethesda Bucks. Take a moment and think about that. The lowest one you can buy, I think, is $750, meaning you'd be 50 short, meaning they knew what they were doing, pricing it 50 higher, because then you'd have to go and get the next tier up, the $15 tier, in order to be able to afford it. So you have to spend at least 15 bucks to get the survival mode. Take a moment and think about that. Even if it is priced at 800 Bethesda Bucks, it is effectively $15 because that's what you have to spend. Do you think a survival mode is worth $15, or is $15 more along the lines of a Foul Scar, a Worm's Tooth, an Undeath, a Knights of the Nine, Shivering Isles? I mean, that's what $15 seems like to me. Instead, we get an extra mode that was The survival mode was put into Fallout 4 because the community was like, where's the hardcore mode from New Vegas? And they got shown up by Obsidian. Obsidian showed up Bethesda. But at the end of the day, was it as good? I don't think so. So now, they're putting it up in Skyrim, except they're charging you for it because they can. That's the only reason they're doing it, is because they can. And they know enough people will buy it. And the sad thing is, I know that no matter how many people rate down Skyrim, rate down Fallout 4, 80% of you will still buy the next Elder Scrolls game, will still buy the next Fallout game. Take a moment and consider, are you absolutely sure you're boycotting this? Because boycotts rarely work, and people are transitory. They forget about things very quickly. People have maybe a 1 or 2 month memory, and then they're back on the hype train again. And I pity those people so much. But you know I'm a jackass, so I'm not actually going to boycott it. I'm just a hypocrite telling you that your negative votes and potential boycotts probably going to do nothing. So let me make a prediction. A hyperbolic, this probably won't happen prediction. Elder Scrolls 6 Valenwood, now with the Creation Club Pass. Join the Creation Club now and get access to the Creation Club Season 1, as well as the ability to upload your creations from the Creation Kit to Bethesda.net. Keep in mind that Creation Club creations are not usable by the game until they are uploaded to Bethesda.net, where they are properly compiled and set up for download. Unreliable websites like the Nexus are a thing of the past. Everything is done directly through Bethesda.net, and with the Creation Club Pass, you too can get your mods uploaded to Bethesda.net. What's this? Script extenders? No, that's hacking the game. We don't allow people to hack the game. But don't worry, because you can use our brand new Snap Map feature to put dungeons together and upload them to Bethesda.net right quick. Are you a veteran mod maker who is subscribed to our Creation Club Pass? Apply to become a Creation Club affiliate today. As a Creation Club affiliate, you will be considered an official freelance developer affiliated with Bethesda Softworks. Join today. Elder Scrolls 6 Valenwood. It's no longer about the game. I very much suspect that Bethesda Game Studios is going to create another amazing, breathtaking world for us to explore, and that we're all going to have fun doing it. But you have to understand, it's going to be packaged and encapsulated in something that is Bethesda Softworks approved. The day of having a full-priced game that is just your game, those days are coming to an end. And if they can charge you to get access to your mods, you betcha they will. This is a slippery slope. Take a look at each step the company has made. From the free plugins of Morrowind, to the horse armor of Oblivion, now to the Creation Club Microtransactions of Skyrim. Follow the trajectory. Pair it up with companies like WB and EA. Follow the trajectory. Bethesda Softworks, the people who told us that we're not giving out advanced copies anymore because we want everyone to experience it at the same time, then promptly give select YouTubers those copies in advance. It's within their legal rights to do, but oh boy is it scummy. And that's where we're at right now. Remember, they are not your friends. You are their customers. And if you think this for-profit corporation isn't going to take you for everything you're worth, you are sadly mistaken. It's not about the games anymore. It's about the sales. Thank you all for watching. I did mention Arthmoor's Patreon during this, and he's definitely worth a buck or two, for sure. You know, I do have my personal problems with him based on some of the things he said and some of the delusions he's under. but I think that everyone should be paid for their work, and Arthmoor has done exemplary work. And if you don't want to donate to his Patreon, you can always donate to mine, patreon.com/thehackeron. I definitely like getting money. And of course, I do live streams and I like getting money there too, so feel free to subscribe to me on twitch.tv/thehackeron. But seriously, people who think companies are their friends, they need a splash of cold water on their face. Nintendo is not your friend. Blizzard is not your friend. Valve is not your friend. And Bethesda is not your friend. Your customers in an industry, a gaming industry. You are not a community. You are a subculture made up of many, many communities. You might be in 5 or 6 communities. Take a moment and reflect upon that. Donate money to me. Click the links on screen for more content. And I will see y'all next time.
Specially created exoframes, they can be transported anywhere. To fuse with incredible assault weapon systems, beamed down from the space station Skyvault.
Powered by dark. Top it by finding the lost 13 treasure. At his side is an
Crap, this is still recording. Hold on.
Conan, the mightiest warrior ever, in vanquishing their leader, the cruel wizard